Just for my introduction, I did some research, and I ask you, what has this chair and me in common? We are both, for the first time, in Hyderabad. It's from IKEA, and I'm traveling from Dubai here to Hyderabad. But I had to research what we just saw. So the IKEA, the new one, just downstairs. I don't have any shares in IKEA. I think I'm not sure if they are a listed company. So we are talking about travel and tourism, and VFS Global stands really at the beginning of a travel cycle. Yes, you might have the idea, the inspiration for a destination, for example, to go to France. And then, of course, you have to check what do I need in terms of the visa, especially when coming from India. And then you'll get in touch with VFS Global going to the visa application center, and we want to make it as easy as possible, as convenient as possible. So we're not a travel company, but travel related, but VFS Global was grown out of a travel company, Kwoni, India. I'm originally coming from the headquarters in Zurich. I'm Swiss. That's why I'm speaking a little bit with a Swiss-German accent. And so it was grown out of a travel company because it was clear that people need visa, and especially our managers here in India, they realized how can we make that easier? And that happened 17 years ago when VFS Global pioneered the outsourced visa application process. But it has to do, of course, with travel, but also some of the examples I'm showing you today in terms of storytelling in the world of travel and tourism is also Kwoni related. The company that is based in Mumbai, and of course in Europe it is a big brand. But the Kwoni Group was sold, and VFS Global is now made as a standalone company, and not really, it has the Swiss parentage, but the Kwoni Group as such doesn't exist. So you would say, yes, you guys in travel and tourism, you have it so easy in storytelling. Look at that picture. It tells a story automatically. You don't even have to tell a story. Well, this is not really true, because we always have to think also, like in your industries, how can we make really a good story to tell? Yes, the images, the video footage and everything, destinations, emotions, passion, everything is in the travel industry and makes it a little bit easier. But nevertheless, we see all these kind of things where we get a lot of information, actually too much every day. I quickly, in preparation for this presentation, checked the latest data, also did some research. It's also for this presentation to tell you the story. So there are 300 hours uploaded on video material every 60 seconds on YouTube, which needs somehow attention. Yes, private things, but also things coming from companies. Over 46 billion videos are viewed every day. If you go further on, over 260 billion emails are sent every day. Yes, all the PR agencies getting in touch with the journalists or other companies, and also maybe you from corporate communication departments. Yes, you're sending out things. Of course, in an email, you get probably half a second attention, and if it doesn't catch, they don't continue to read. So people are really distracted by all this that needs a lot of attention. 5,000 marketing messages every day we see. When I drove from my hotel down the road, further up, I saw so many marketing messages, so many kind of billboards or something. Even here on the table, I think there were about 20 marketing messages on the table that wanted to have my attention. So that's where all our message has to go through. 51% of our working hours just handles just information, especially we that work mainly in offices in front of the computer or dealing with the people. It's amazing. We're just handling information, 51% of our working hours. Or 79% of the people just scan information. Even nowadays, I read newspaper articles, mainly online, not on paper anymore. I just scan them. On the iPhone in the morning, I just scan some information. Does it really attract me? Is it interesting to me? Does it catch me? So that's how the people nowadays want to have all the attention. And our brain consumes pictures 60 times faster than texts. You might have heard it yesterday as well. Yes, this is clear. That's why storytelling is so important. And we all remember stories 20 times better than just facts. Stories are something. That's why we are here. I want to show you quickly a video. Maybe you've seen that video, The Power of Words. It's quite an old video, about 10 years old, when really the storytelling was kind of coming up and being interesting. But I think it really explains the world of storytelling very, very good. Who has seen this video before? Quite a bit. So, but I want to show it again because actually I watched it last night and again when I ran through, and I watched it really in full length because it really explains very well what it is all about.
What did you do to my sign?
I wrote the same, but in different words.
Thanks, love.
That's exactly why we're here. And although the video is very well known, I love it all the times to see. Because, yeah, I'm blind. Please help. And it's a beautiful day, but I can't see it. That kind of gets to our emotions and people passing by giving the blind man the money. Let's go into an example in travel and tourism. Have you heard of this campaign from Queensland about 4 or 5 years ago, the best job in the world? Who has heard about it? Quite a bit, I think, because it was really all over the world. It was a great campaign. So in a nutshell, I'll show you also a video about that, which explains it very well. In a nutshell, they wanted to promote Queensland in Australia. Of course, you can do the usual ads with nice sandy beaches, with nice palm trees and so on, spend millions, but they just run it on a really small budget, and they made a great story by offering a job on an island for 6 months, and you can earn $150,000. And that's how they did it. It's a great example in tourism, how you can really get the attention. It went viral about 5 years ago without spending a lot of money. Let's have a look.
Looking for work? Well, you may want to consider moving to Australia.
Australia's Tourism Bureau looking to fill what it is calling the best job in the world.
澳洲呢份工究竟有幾好呢？
Пересидеть холода и глобальный...
Trabajar en la paradisíaca.
Could this be your new office? Hamilton Island, off the coast of Queensland, needs a caretaker.
Duties include feeding ocean fish, cleaning a pool and collecting deliveries of mail.
It comes with a rent-free 3-bedroom villa with plunge pool.
All this and a salary of about $8,800 a month. As you might imagine, the regional director says response to the ad has been overwhelming.
Apart from being a very clever way to publicise an extremely beautiful part of Australia, I think what this position reflects is a desire to say to the world, look, this is a wonderful place to come and travel to.
And all you have to do is write a weekly blog.
That can't be right.
There's no catch. This is a real job.
I'd be very good at it.
You'd have to remember to feed the fish.
Video applications, including one from the Vatican.
All applicants have to do is submit a 60-second video to this website, islandreefjob.com.
Hi, I'm John, and I'm a police officer in England. You can tell by the silly hat.
I come from the ice tundra of the world.
It's really cold here in Connecticut, and I'd love to go to your paradise.
My dad was the great entertainer, Mr. Dean Martin.
Oh, do you think all we do is eat sausages and sauerkraut? Well, let me prove you wrong, because I'm definitely not one of them.
Yoo-hoo! Yoo-hoo! Here I am!
Here in the north of Sweden, the sea is covered with ice. So if you want to go snorkeling, you need an icebreaker.
So we're going to allow the public to vote for their favourite candidate. We'll pick another 10, we'll fly them across to Hamilton Island for a final interview, and then pick the successful candidate.
It's very tempting.
What do you sign up for that one,
Yeah, sounds like tough work there.
Watch the whales.
So if you're not here tomorrow.
They accepted me. I don't think so.
In Australia.
Yeah, right.
Oh, man.
Just to put these stats again, this is amazing what you achieve with such a campaign on a very, very low budget. Yes, of course, in travel and tourism, it is a bit easier, because we play with the dreams of the people, the aspirations, the passion, the nice destinations. And yes, of course, who wouldn't want to have such a job? I would have even done it without the $150,000. Just as a 6-month sabbatical, feeding fish and cleaning the pool, probably everybody would have done. And of course, the main target was to promote Queensland at the end of the day, and that worked for them very well. But it was just the idea. Somebody had the idea to do something like that. And I think how it turned out was very well. So it was all over the world, as you also could see from the video. Let's go into something you're probably a little bit more familiar. Who publishes annual reports? For listed companies or even non-listed companies, so a lot. I think annual reports, and not only for travel companies, is something that is a great vehicle to use stories in. Actually, at the Kuoni Group, which was the parent company of VFS Global, we used every year a kind of a brand report where we used a lot of storytelling. And about 10 years ago, we had an annual report out where we could think, okay, we're in traveling, we're also in India, and we do a lot of travel inbound to India. Why don't we do an expedition on the Ganga River? And actually, there was a Swiss team being on the Ganga River right from the source till the end, till it goes into the sea. And we used that, and you see here a picture from it, in our annual report. It was nicely done in a kind of carton box. And actually, it was an annual report that won a lot of prizes. And even the analysts and the financial interested people, they wanted to have this printed annual report. There was also an online version back in time, 2009. So in annual report, storytelling is really something that works. And even the management, which you say, yeah, it's an annual report and so on, but it really has something to go into an annual report, and also it fuels the brand. And that was our main thing. Where is our competence as a travel company? So we used it because it was, the annual report is the main publication in corporate communications, what we had as a holding company being listed, not really on the operational ground. We used it in several things. It was about 50 pages with interviews with the whole expedition, reports and so on, and people just loved it. Nowadays, you would also add a real good online version to it with videos and everything. In 2009, we didn't do it in that extent. Also, an annual report we published as a newspaper with all the stories about traveling in, like what you would see in a travel section of a newspaper, Times of India or so on. So we did something like that. It was a revolution in Switzerland. That was about in 2011, also won prizes. And actually, in Switzerland, there was the annual report rating awards on Thursday night. And in the design category, a company won using the newspaper design concept, more or less copied from us, but if they copied well, they won the prize. Something more I want to tell you what is possible, especially for a travel company when you have your brochures out and you want to inspire the people. But of course, brochures are boring. Nowadays, people go also online because all these offers are online again. Also, so you should really kind of inspire the people through different areas where you use social media and so on. So for Kwoni Switzerland, about 4 or 5 years ago, we used Elsewhere by Kwoni, and we had a portal where people were brought from offline to online and had some videos on there. We had some bloggers there which really told stories about the destinations and everything. And I want to show you one example of a project we did. It was called Search for the Perfect Sunset, and the project's name was 2 minutes, 22 seconds. So young filmmakers we sent all over the world, and they had to come back with a story, and they could really kind of define the story. So we sent one team to Indonesia, and they came up with the idea, let's search for the perfect sunset. Where would we find it? How would people describe it? And that's the video, how it turned out.
Only on the beach, but you also can see the sunset on the mountain. The sun goes so slowly to the hill, and the colors are changing, becoming a little red, and then more red. The red color is becoming more and more, and then suddenly the sun goes into the hill. It is suddenly dark.
We have heard that the sunset and sunrise are really beautiful from the beach, but we haven't been to the beach yet.
Was es natürlich braucht, ist das Meer im Hintergrund. Die Sonne, die so langsam durch ein paar Wolken durchsickert. Das goldige Licht, das nachher ins Rot hineingeht, mit ein bisschen kitschigen, violetten Wolken im Hintergrund. Das wär's.
Like the sun being reflected on the waves and disappearing at the horizon, like all the colors, pink, yellow, orange at the same time.
Ja, sie sind einfach viel intensiver. Also sie haben so eine Farbe, das haben wir die Heime gar nicht. So ein leuchtiges Rot und so. Also du siehst die Farbe so richtig.
Er wird immer farbiger und farbiger und die Farben werden intensiver und goldiger und irgendwann dunkelt es dann langsam ein und dann geht es ganz schnell und dann ist es vorbei.
That's how people describe their perfect sunset. So it was not about Indonesia. Yes, of course, the story then was related on social media and so on, with Indonesia, but it was just the idea, okay, let's go to the people there that are on holidays, and they tell how should the perfect sunset look like. That was just this simple idea. We sent some filmmakers, and even nowadays you can do it with your smartphones. It's so easy to make these kind of videos and use it afterwards on the several channels. I want to give you another example about VFS Global. You know, VFS Global is an administrative service. This is not a sexy service you would probably look for, like a smartphone or something close or something. It's not so tangible, but it makes your life easy and convenient if you get that at the visa application centers. And what we struggled is, especially in Europe, because it was part of the listed company Quoni Group, what we struggle is to explain the analysts and the financial journalists what this company does. Because in Europe, people hardly need any visa when they are traveling to many countries. And so we had to explain them how this is. And yes, we did it with several fact sheets. We did it with, yes, explanations of the process and everything. But at the end of the day, it didn't work. So we had to create something where we make a story out of it. So we created a figure, Jay, who needs a visa, and how he goes through the visa process. I quickly show you 2 minutes of this video. It is about 5 minutes long. It's a bit longer than normal.
More and more people right across the globe, and especially from Asia, the Middle East and Africa, are getting the chance to explore the world. For many of them, the first step in the journey is to get a visa, and that's where VFS Global comes in. VFS Global was born in India in 2001, when Quoni saw an opportunity to enhance the visa application process for governments and diplomatic missions, and for visa applicants too. Just over a decade later, and VFS Global has grown to become the world's leading outsourced visa services provider. Our purpose has always been to look after the non-judgmental administrative part of the visa application process. This allows governments and their diplomatic missions to focus on the actual decision-making. In other words, whether or not an applicant should be granted a visa for travel. The business is run through visa application centers, which accept applications via travel agents or directly from visa applicants, like Jay here. Jay needs a visa in order to travel to the UK. He visits the UK government website dealing with visas and immigration and completes his online application form. He also books his appointment and pays the visa fees. On the day of his appointment, Jay visits the visa application centre. Since he has an appointment booked, he can go straight to the security check area.
And so he goes on
Once
and
this
on
is
and
complete,
on through the entire process. It's about 5 minutes video, but I don't have to show. But you understand what I meant by that. So it's a kind of usual process, administrative process, and we had to kind of explain to the people how this works. Often journalists called me and asked, what is this VFS Global doing? You're not a travel company, but you're travel related. And then I sent them the link, watch this video. If you have any questions, come back. Yes, he or she, they came back, but no questions anymore, because it was clear what the business model and everything is through this story. Let's create together quick a story. That's a photo shot I've taken in Kenya, also about 6-7 years ago in the Masai Mara, a beautiful national park. That's a Masai warrior, and they are really, usually they don't need these binoculars. They see it with their own eye. If something moving in the savannah, in the bush, and they see exactly when some animals are around. So we can create a story just to attract maybe people interested going to Kenya. So we should know our audience there. So usually I go through such an exercise when I create a story, when it's not just about an offering that we would do for Kenya, for example. So we know the audience. The audience is probably a little bit elder, 35, 40 plus. They can afford going to Kenya, and they are, of course, loving nature and so on. Or even families would go and show the real world with the animals. So we would know the audience. We would also know our purpose. Yes, at the end of the day, is we want to sell more travel. going to Kenya and making some money. The essence of the story should be something we want to see there. We want to kind of experience there with the animals that could inspire the people, oh, let's go to Kenya. Main character would be definitely the Maasai warrior. It would be us as a traveler and maybe an animal. Let's take a lion. That's kind of a simple one. A lion and the story, how it begins, how it ends. I would not recommend that the lion eats the tourist. I think this would not work as a story, but something a little bit with excitement, adventurous could be how it starts. Actually can start in one of these luxurious tent camps out in the national parks, these really glamorous tents where you get the coffee or the tea in the morning. You hear at night, you can't sleep actually the first night because you hear all the animals out there kind of roaring, the lions and so on. And then of course you go out in the savannah, have your breakfast maybe under that tree. This is all not made up, they do these things. You have your breakfast under the tree where they serve you with tables and so on. And of course you need lots of fantasy, what could happen with that lion that maybe approaches and the Maasai warrior would see it and there could be some excitement there. Choose your channels. Nowadays we have a lot of kind of opportunities for using channels in terms of what is just written, what is electronically and so on. That's why I use the technology. As I said, nowadays you can do your story very well with your smartphones, even in your own apartment, or you do it with your PR agency or other specialized agency that can do it, but define it clearly who it is for. And the brand benefit that is at the end there should not be just a story about going to the savannah and having something nice, a safari, a drive game there. It should also kind of fuel your brand. Just to summarize quickly, have a clear strategy, how, what, for whom, when, and why this would be. I think this is for every industry, and you heard it probably yesterday also several times, pretty basic. What is kind of the ingredients, what is needed, or the kind of checklist, what is needed. Identify your audience. This is absolutely, in tourism, maybe a little bit easier than if you are in a different industry. And that's an important thing. Communications and or the marketing team should lead it. Yes, sometimes HR comes up with an idea, legal comes up with an idea, but don't leave it to them. We are the specialists and we will handle that, because if you see a script coming from legal, you know how it looks like. You have to rewrite it completely. Not every hype is suitable for storytelling, especially in the travel and tourism sector. They usually try to use everything, for example, the channel Snapchat. It has a clear audience there, but probably the Kenya story would not work on Snapchat because that's not our audience there. So not jump on every hype that you see or somebody's coming up, and especially when you have the younger people in your communications or marketing team, they come up with, oh, this is new, we should use this. Yes, evaluate, but not every hype is really suitable for the storytelling. And you have to be creative, just creative. And everybody can be creative. This is kind of easy. Especially when you're excited, you can be creative. Yes, people say, oh, I'm not so creative, and we are not really a company that is very creative. But you can excite creativity. It is possible. That's important. Going viral can't be planned. Oh, let's do this story, and especially travel and tourism with this, and then it will go viral. You can't plan it. It happens. Like it happened with this, the best job in the world for Queensland. Probably they didn't expect that it would be such a big hit. They could think, yes, it's a good story, it works, but it just happens. Take risks. It's important to take risks when you create the story. No foreign shame, but clever in style. Yeah, this is something, often I see some stories for products that are maybe cheap products. If you, for example, just a bag of chips, and they do a story around. but they did it in a cheap way. But you can also promote chips in style, design, how you film it and everything. This will fuel your brand. I think the product should not define how cheap or in style you create a story. And definitely the future belongs to the best and creative storytellers. Storytelling is not something new. It is there for many, many years already, but it becomes more and more important since we have the democratization of the communication with all the social media channels. You directly can communicate with your consumers. You don't need a newspaper anymore like 30 years ago where everything just went on print. Thank you very much.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Hi, Peter.
Hi, Rashmi.
Thank you. So that was a wonderful presentation, Peter. I must say it was quite insightful, very interesting, and the content was backed by research and a lot of proven data points. I couldn't help but notice that you have used quite a lot of key ingredients of good storytelling, and that's the reason I found that it resonated with me. And I'm sure all of the people sitting out here would also agree with me that it was quite relatable. So thank you once again. So before we move on, I just want to ask all of you, if that world's best job was still available, how many of you would have applied for it? Please raise your hands. Wow. So that's the kind of response that we see when we talk about traveling, exotic travel destination. And these are the people who keep traveling all the time because their job demands that. And so either they are traveling or planning their vacation. So, with that thought in mind, and I think Amit has paired us for this session for some reason because we have something in common. We work for travel industry. VFS and Vistara, we help people to travel. We help them to realize their travel aspirations. And for travel industry people, it is easier to create stories, interesting stories, immersive stories, which can quickly find an emotional connect. So with that thought in mind, my first question to you is, how difficult do you think it is for B2B brands to create stories which can have common people relate to it, and case in point, component manufacturers for that matter? So what is the advice that you would want to give to fellow communicators who manage B2B brands?
Yes, of course, when being at Kwoni, it was easier because it was everything totally travel related. Now at VFS Global, which is just an administrative service, but a very important and valuable one, it is more difficult. And it has everything. It has B2C, when we meet the applicants, and also maybe want to sell them the premium lounge or other services. The B2B part, where we deal with organizations, with travel agents and so on, and the B2G, business to government part, where we also have to sell our services to our clients or potential future clients. And I think the B2B part, and B2G is a bit special, but the B2B compared to B2C is extremely a demanding and difficult one. And the ones of you that work in B2B, they know. Storytelling is always easy said, but to have the idea in B2B is more difficult than in B2C. Yes, in B2C you are more exposed, and that's what we also have somehow in common. Like on Vistara, if you have some, and especially with the smartphones nowadays on the plane everywhere, so it was mentioned United, the case, but also I think American Airlines and others, they had these issues. People just film if somebody's misbehaving of the staff, it goes viral, and then you have your story.
Yes.
Definitely not the one you like. And that's the good thing at the visa application centers, you actually are not allowed to take in the smartphones, or you have to switch it off for security reasons. That's not a rule from us, that's from the client governments. So I think my advice is, if you have to do storytelling in B2B, maybe you take also your advice from agencies that are specialized in it. Don't think just your marketing and communication department can do everything on your own. Take support from really good B2B PR agencies that have the experience there. That would be my advice.
Okay. Back to travel, that's the industry that we belong to. So every industry is tapping into the millennial market these days. How do you think that millennials are different from the older generation, and in terms of their preferences, in terms of their spending, when it comes to lifestyle product and especially travel?
Yeah, very, very difficult audience, very demanding. And also, I see in different parts of the world, as we are a really truly global business, especially here in India, millennials, and especially women, are extremely demanding and shouting out easily if they don't get what they want. And that's why you have to communicate to them properly. That means definitely that you have to explain them. Especially we see when they maybe travel for the first time to Europe and they need a visa, they're not so experienced with that. And they don't know that about 20 years ago, our generation would have stand in long queues in front of the visa application, in front of the embassy at that time. Nowadays, it's in a mall. It is with premium lounge and super fast services and whatever. They are not aware of that, and you have to explain much more. So when we now prepare for example, for the next peak season, which starts more or less January, February, especially here in India, we will have more explanation videos for the services. We will communicate much earlier that people should apply earlier. And because on the website they see it just takes 15 working days for a visa or 2 weeks in total. And sometimes the embassies during peak season, especially when you have this strong growth in traveling, what we see here in India, then it takes a bit longer at the embassy. And we live in a world of Amazon and Apple where you can track your parcel in every step, but for the visa application process this is not possible as soon as the passport and the application is at the embassy, because the embassy is not Apple, it's not Amazon, these are government people, so it takes a bit time and they don't track just from desk to desk where your passport is. We do it at the application center, but there will be a blind spot for about 2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah.
These are things we have to explain, because if people don't understand that, or if people are just shouting out, they shout out at us, but it's not our fault. Yes, we can't say, well, these government people, they are so slow, because they are our clients. We can't blame them. But we have to educate the people, and especially, coming back to the millennials, they need a lot of education of a service or product. That is what we realized, not only in India, we see it all over the world, because millennials, nowadays, they love to travel, they love to see the world, they don't just save the money for a house and family, they do that later, but they want to make the career and they want to see the world, and that's why they need a little bit of special treatment.
Continuing on that thought about millennials, so in this day and age of fragmented media, when people are consuming the information in various ways and the brands are vying for attention, what do you think is the best medium to amplify your stories, to get the best out of it? Because then there is this traditional long format print stories, then online videos, Periscope, Facebook Live, so the long format and the 30-second capsule. So what works best when you have to get the maximum ROI?
I think at the end of the day, it's a mix of everything, but you have to define it at the beginning. So you need to know, as you saw on one of the slides, what is your target audience with that special service? Okay, where are they? On which channels are they? What do they like to consume? Yes, if they are millennials, please not longer than 45 seconds. If they are 40 plus, it can be a long read somewhere. In printed or on a blog or something. So you really have nowadays to define in details and create a matrix how you want to bring over your story. This has become even more demanding, I think, for our jobs, but also more exciting because we have all these channels available.
Yeah. I am a little old school. I like to read a story about a particular destination in print. I would pick up a Condé Nast or a TLC and would just want to know more about it. But yes, as I said, that there are different people, they want to consume information in diverse ways. And I have an unusual question for you here. So at forums like this, people and brands discuss success stories, stories that become a topic of discussion and that become good case studies. But then failures teach us a lot. And I rarely seen any brand talking about the learnings from their failures. So what do you think is the reason behind that? And should brands be afraid of sharing their learnings from their failures?
Well, they have probably good communication and marketing department and good PR agencies. And of course, we all live here a little bit in a bubble and in a shiny, glitzy world. We don't like to talk about our failures or what campaign didn't work. Of course, internally you do it, and in the relation with your agency you do it as well.
Yeah.
But I think to be authentic in certain areas, you could do failures. I remember what we did in an annual report where we mentioned in a chapter where the company failed. Of course, these were not particularly campaigns, but really we could have just made a smooth text and just not mention it particularly. But sometimes it can help if you be very transparent and you talk about your failure, again, in the right channel to the right audience. This makes you you get the empathy to your brand. This has to be thought through very well, and especially because it's something you do actively. It's not forced, like the latest data breach with Facebook that was announced yesterday. Yes, of course, they had to say we failed, but this was forced to do. But if you do voluntarily and say we failed there and there, just think about it. If you do it in an intelligent way, it could help your brand, and you create a lot of empathy for your company.
Yeah. Nestle, case in point, their big Maggie crisis that had happened, they actually just talked about it when it was happening at that point in time. Peter, when everyone in these days and time has a story to tell, I was referring to one point in your presentation when you said that stories have to be led by communicators and marketers. So can you please elaborate on that? Because HR can have a story about organizational culture, the kind of people they hire, and similarly legal and finance. So why can't they tell their own story? Why do they need help of communicators and marketers?
Simple, because they are not good at that. We are the ones that are good at that. We are the ones that, this is our core competence. If you have a communications or marketing department in your organization and you leave that to HR, finance, legal, IT, well, yeah, write your story, do your story, we publish then, you lost. You can't exist because that's our core competence and we should also lead it. And also, control is important, especially when you're in a large company. This is important that you control what is being communicated internally and externally, and that's why this is so important.
Talking about crafting a story, you talked about all the do's, the crucial elements of crafting a story that can become successful and shareable. Are there any pitfalls that the communicators should avoid while developing a story?
Yeah, there is currently a hype out there with the influencer, with all these Instagram accounts having several 100,000 followers. Just be careful with these. For example, we're exploring currently something for a push of our services in Saudi Arabia because we see there a big potential. And we're taking over also our partner company there, so we're fully in charge there. And the agency where we're working together there said, well, there are some Arabic women, there are influencers on Instagram. One post costs $2,000. And I just said, no, we're not spending that money. Yes, it works maybe for typical tourism destinations or some restaurants in London or Paris, this might work. But for us, just having an administrative service, yes, we have also a glamorous, nice premium lounge where you get great services there, but is it worth? Would people really aspire for the premium lounge by spending $2,000 for one post by one Arabic Instagram influencer? I doubt. So you have to check for your industry what is really needed, and not just because it is a hype. You have to be careful with these hypes all over the world, coming from all over the world. And there are a lot of success stories with these influencers, but you have to check if it really works for your company, for your product and service, and also for your budget. There are a lot of also traditional ways. We go now a traditional way in Saudi Arabia as of January, and I'm convinced it will be successful in the first stage.
That actually answers my question on paid route versus organic, growth. So what I understand is that you're suggesting that we should have confidence in our content, that the story would organically grow, and should not be, going for the paid route all the time.
If your story is really great, it goes organically. Yes, it can maybe help in some areas to spend a little bit of money to kind of penetrate it further. But if your story is really, really good, and you saw it like the best job in the world, of course, it's not possible every day, but you saw it there, it is possible without spending much money. So it needs our creativity, and as I said, we are the best people in a company. We have that creativity, and we have the core competence to do it, and also with the help of the partners of agencies.
Rashmi, we're running out of time. Just one last question, if that's okay.
So, okay, the last question. So while we have been talking a lot about authenticity, credibility, and transparency about storytelling in the conference, compelling narrative, a clear structure, and a well-defined end objective are also added to the list by other speakers, including you. What, according to you, is the most important element that acts as a driving force to give your content a power to stick to people, to create a brand recall, and that element can't be compromised?
Yeah, I think there is one word, it's a difficult one to pronunciate from my language, is authenticity. Authenticity. So be authentic. It's very important. We live in a world of fake news, and there was also, I think there is in the afternoon a panel on that. Just nowadays, everything can be checked, can be proved. People do research, and it comes back as a boomerang to you if you just make up something and it is not authentic, it is just fake news. Just don't do that. Be real, authentic, play with your facts, what you have, and then tell your story.
Very valid point. Thank you so much, Peter. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.